Hey, Ron. Good to see you this morning. How are things? How you doing, my friend?
Good, RJ. How you doing? Got another great topic today. Why don't you tell us what we're talking about?
Yeah, today is so important, right? This is a foundational piece of just, a project being successful and a project actually performing the way you want it to. And that thing that we're talking about is data. So critical. Um, you know, so we're going to talk about the 5 areas to focus on when getting your product data ready for your project. Now, that project could be a few different things. It could be, an e-commerce project, could be an AI project. It, could be SEO or AEO or GEO or any of those fun 3-letter acronyms that we'll talk about here today. But
Yeah.
data is the key, no question about it. And that's a really important point of this. So, so important that we're seeing stats on why projects, are sort of struggling. And bad data is the number one cause of sort of project delays, integration challenges, all those sort of things that we're going to talk about today. In fact, Gartner reports that dirty data costs companies an average of $12.9 million a year because they're doing rework, they've got failed integrations, they're slower time to market, lost revenue. I mean, it really materializes if you don't do that properly. So we're going to talk today about the 5 things you can focus on to prevent that from happening. So with that, I know this is an area that you're super well informed on, Ron. So why don't you take us on the first topic here?
Yeah, sounds great. So obviously the first one, and you kind of mentioned it when you mentioned the 3-letter acronyms, right? It's the SEO, the AEO, the GEO, the MCP, basically structured data. The world is changing. I mean, it started changing 2 years ago. SEO for the last 20 years was king. And 90% of I've been here 13 and a half years as one of the owners. And up until 2 years ago, 90%, it fluctuated when we got a lot of referrals in a month, right? But for the most part, 90% of our revenue came in from SEO. I mean, so we doubled down and tripled down on all of our SEO work. But over the last 2 years, it started trailing off. It didn't trail off in the number of leads. It trailed off in where the leads were coming from. Because 2 years ago, the people also ask started popping up at the top of the results, right? That's AEO, answer engine optimization. And that started a couple of years ago, and people started traversing over there. So we started having to do FAQ snippets and doing that kind of structured data. And then all of a sudden, about 6 months ago, now when you go in and type in a question, and I'll pop a real thing quick here up on the thing. I'm going to go in and type, what is AOV, I think it's the screenshot that I use. So what is AOV? And you can pop up, and the first thing at the top of the page, you can see here, it's AI, generative answer, right? And then the next thing are the AEO, it's all the questions and stuff. So they've taken over. And so SEO, for the most part, matter of fact, we were just looking at an article this morning that was done last month where they said SEO is dead. I mean, and we've seen in certain months, we've seen leads in the SEO bucket drop as much as 70%. Where they've been stable literally for the last 15 years, drop 70%, but those leads move over to the AEO and the GEO buckets. So structured data is super important. A couple quick statistics here. 50%, over here. Companies that optimize their content for AEO, GEO see up to 30% more traffic. Adding structured FAQ content, now this is the AEO, right? This is the FAQ snippets, boost rich research results by 20 to 40%. So this is super important. I mean, we're focusing if I put those 3 in one bucket and just called it our marketing budget for content, online content, I would say 80% of our money now is going into AEO and GEO focused optimizations, not SEO anymore. That's how important this one is. So structured data, you've got to go through, use AI to redo your data. Go back to your existing pages, feed that content into your AI tools and say, hey, I need you to restructure this data and use the engineering prompts to go out and build out and have it restructure your data so that it matches all of those requirements, and then reinsert your data back in. Otherwise, you're going to lose to your competitors. That's a big one. All right, why don't you take us into the next one?
Yeah, another one, and this sort of is both a data and performance, but also sort of just a customer experience sort of thing, and
Yeah.
that's around high quality, consistent images and even multimedia assets. Interestingly enough, we're in a project right now where the blocker is the client doesn't have all their images done
Yeah.
and how their image is ready, so everybody's waiting to take this site live based on getting this sort of thing. So it's not a nice to have, it's a must have. I mean, one of the things that the stats that sort of was impactful for me on this topic was that, based on a consumer research done by Salsify, is that images account for up to 56% of buyer trust. Right.
Yeah.
So like even when you're doing things and you're going into ChatGPT or Perplexity or Gemini or whatever and saying, I want to see these things, if it pulls something back, and especially if you're looking for a product, if the image isn't what you want it to be, your mind's immediately going to say that's not it. Right.
Yeah.
So having that imagery there, so having, multiple angles, maybe some lifestyle shots, maybe some comparison images, and even like short videos, all that stuff is important, especially when, you're engaging. It's been important for a long time in, B2C, but now in the B2B world, since that's transitioning over to digital commerce, you need it there too. So it's just something you need to do. You need, consistent naming conventions. So everything's consistent. That's going to help with, kind of what you're talking about. Adding image alt text so that text can be consumed both from a traditional sense of SEO, but now when you're looking at the answer engine searching those things, they need that information too, so that they can pull those images through. So all that is just, a critical piece of this and can take time. But to your point, now you can use AI to help get your data ready for AI. Go out and find images or things like that, and then do a lot of the legwork. So then you can just optimize and go from there and not have to create from scratch. So that's something that we're seeing, and it's definitely more impactful than someone would think until you get into a project and realize you're stuck because you need it.
Yeah, no, absolutely true. And you think about it, they're window shopping. I mean, having those images, they can't pick up the device and hold it and play with it. And so those pictures really are them holding it and playing with it. That's the replacement.
Yep.
Yeah. So the next one is normalizing your attributes for filters, facets, and search. You don't understand how important this is. So I'm going to give you two big stats and then we'll talk briefly about it. One statistic says 72% of B2B buyers, and this is a Forrester B2B study, saying not being able to filter products is a top frustration. 72%. It just seems weird. You don't even think about that. Another study RJ and I did from a different webinar we did just a couple months ago was that 70%, this is a Google study, 77% of people that come and use search on your site to find something, if they can't find it on the first search, they leave your site and never return. I think RJ made a comment about, think of the lifetime value, negative value of that one experience, not being able to find an item.
Opportunity cost.
Yeah. So part of that is normalizing the data. I remember one of my clients, TWC, I won't mention their name, but when I asked for their data, we were going to import their data. They sent me 270 Word docs. That was their products. And I opened the Word docs and I went to OCR them and I pulled them all in, and they were done by different people. And so unfortunately, one had the word inch, one had inches, one had IN, one had IN period, one had double quotes, one was blank. They didn't have anything. And I spent just on those 270 docs, I think I billed them 37 hours normalizing all of their data and just their attributes across all of their products. So you can even go to a catalog and say, I want anything that is, this outside diameter, because they were doing wires and things like that. It was crazy. The data was so bad, and it took me forever to clean up the data just to be able to pull it into e-commerce to be filtered and searched on, right? So normalize, control your vocabulary, use the same vocabulary. If you have different people writing different descriptions, make sure they're using the same words and the same vernacular, right? Consistent spelling. We see that all over the place, especially with us here in the US and Canada and Australia and England. Even in English, we're seeing all these different spellings of the word color, right? Standardized units, the one that I just talked about, inches and Fahrenheit and weights and degrees and things like that. All those kinds of things. Make sure that it's about all the things that need to be available, the site search, the product comparison. How do you compare things by size if the sizes aren't consistent across? And so I can't compare them apples to apples, right? So that's a real big one. Let's go on to the next one.
Yeah, and this one, number 4, is really almost like, 3A, right? You just talked about. It's literally just an extension of what you just talked about, because it's doing that same thing, but doing it from thinking about the customer's perspective, right? So the sort of customer-driven taxonomy, and even AI as a customer driving that taxonomy, so that, because most companies, to your point, they think about their categories based on their organizational structure or their own internal things. But you've got to think when someone or something is going to search for your product, what are they thinking? What do they need? So that you're actually getting that sort of taxonomy put in your data, so that is the proper item or content or whatever it is being surfaced from that query. So because Accenture saying that, like, poor taxonomy causes a drop of 20 to 35% in your conversion. I mean, potentially a third of your conversion rate drops because you don't have proper taxonomy. So when you're thinking about things like, category hierarchy or parent-child relationships between products, or synonyms, or even breadcrumbs, or how somebody would sort of find it along the way, or the URL structure, all that sort of stuff needs to be sort of part of your process as you're thinking about getting your data ready to get a good outcome, right? So it's super important, not only for the individual person you're trying to engage with, but now AI presenting it to that individual person. So that's just, like I say, in a continuation of what you were just talking about, normalizing your data and making sure it's prepared properly.
Yeah, I did a webinar last year with our CEO, and we taught, and it was literally just about taxonomy. And there was one of the studies that ran a study on the top 133 top retail online storefronts in US and Europe. And they found 78% rated poor on taxonomy, and less than 13% actually had decent structure. I mean, and they only found one when they had all this grading criteria. Out of the 133, they only found one that actually made it above all the bars. And that, I'll give them credit, adidas.com. So if you want to see the best taxonomy on the internet, according to obviously this study, go look at adidas.com and look at their taxonomy and rip it apart and see what they did, because they were apparently in that study the only ones that got it right.
Yeah.
So,
and you and I were just talking before this about this IDC piece of content that I was reading yesterday, where one of their analysts went out and did, some comparison, and from sort of a agentic commerce perspective of looking at products basically using AI search. And what they found was they weren't getting what they thought they were going to get in their search. What they were getting was results from companies that had done a really good job of structuring their data in preparation for search engines. So this really is becoming a critical piece of business.
Yeah, for sure. So the last one kind of extends on what you just said, as far as the online business, is the aligned pricing and the inventory. One of the things that is becoming more important, especially with AI and people looking for AI, are your integrations and your back office integrations. You can't have your ERP saying that something's $100, but then not having all the pricing tables synced and your inventory up to date. Because if people are using AI and people are finding things a lot faster and there's more queries, you better have your inventory and your pricing and everything updated on your website. So this last one, it says the number one thing that derails project is misaligned inventory, pricing, or variance between the different back office systems. Buyers expect real-time pricing. This is a McKinsey B2B report, by the way. So data, inventory, variance of information, different colors, different configurations, especially in the B2C world, but this is a B2B study. So make sure to get everything aligned across your ERPs, your CRMs, your PIM, your e-commerce, the customer specific pricing tables, MTP, multi-tiered pricing, and pricing contracts with your vendors and suppliers. I mean, there's so many moving parts in these B2B projects that we're doing. You need to make sure to have all of the data across those elements synced. So even though this is we're talking about AI, it's a lot about the integration too, because remember, data AI's accuracy is based on the data. And if the data is not accurate across all your data sources, then that exacerbates the issues through using AI, right? So why don't you close us out and give us any words of wisdom as far as big time stats?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple things. One is, this Harvard Business Review study that you and I found was that really, only 3% of companies' data meets, basic quality standards, and 47% of newly created data records have at least one critical error. So meaning that, it's you can distinguish yourself as a company in results, in your engagement with your customers, just by doing a good job with your data, because a lot of people are still struggling with it. And using AI to help you get your data ready is a way to handle that, what used to be a super onerous task, like you talking about 37 hours to sort of clean up, however many hundreds of 27, pages of whatever documents that someone sent you. But it's really important there from a differentiation, and that, thinking about this, even as we talk a lot about AI from this Dell study, and 85% of AI initiatives fail due to inadequate data preparation. So, it's all about, the old Abe Lincoln quote about, if you give me, 6 hours to chop wood, I'm going to spend 4 hours sharpening my axe, or whatever it is, right? It's prep. And the better you prep, everything's going to go smooth from there. Yep. So, that's critical. And that, this one from that we see is that, 87% of AI projects never reach production, with poor data quality emerging as the primary culprit. So it's like, it is really the foundational thing you need to do to make everything else work. So can't stress it enough. Use tools to make it faster, easier, better for you to do, but definitely prioritize that, because it is the basis that you're going to build on top of.
Yeah, RJ and I did a webinar that we published just a few weeks ago. And one of the things we talked about is that most AI projects have a pre-mini data mitigation and audit project to start with, right? So a lot of times when we start these AI projects, while we're talking about and figuring out all the different business processes and the business mappings where AI can fit into your business, simultaneously, we're running a little 2-week data project where we're finding where all the data sources, then we're doing an audit and a mitigation risk of all the data and putting a strategy together of what are we going to do with the data? What do we need to bring forward? What do we need to clean? What do we need to ignore? I think you guys have heard me, if you've watched any of our other webinars, one of Google's studies says 95% of all data is dark data. That means all this data you've been gathering, your team's only accessing 5% of it. All the rest of it, you never access it, but you have it. But as soon as you put AI on that front door, open the door and tell AI to ingest it all, guess what happens to all that data that we don't even know we have, or we don't even know the quality of that data? It all gets ingested, and now AI accesses it because it has no idea to differentiate between good, bad, old, dark, whatever data, right? So data is king. 85% of the projects fail because of data inadequacies and problems with data. So give us a call. We'd love to chat with you. We'd love to do a small data mitigation risk project with you. Again, thanks, RJ. Always a pleasure. Thanks for watching, guys.
Bye.